Welcome to Chattin Out Loud, Mental Health Matters. I'm your host, Jess Chattin, and today we have Sarah Shaffer on with us, and she is going to share a little bit about her journey. So, hello, Sarah. How are you?
Hey, Jess, how are you? It's so nice to talk with you.
I am so excited that you're here. I know that this has been a while since we've been planning this. I'm so glad that we connected. But thank you so much for rearranging your schedule and all of that to get
Absolutely.
here.
I think the message is just so vital. So every which way we can get it out there, I am more than happy to.
I love it. And a huge thank you to Mindbloom for
Yes,
connecting us. Huge shout out to them for connecting us. I think that was such a crucial connection for both of us. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
absolutely. Take it away.
All right, I'm taking it away. So first, Sarah, your story is so raw and powerful. Can you share a little bit about your journey from 20 years in addiction to 4 years of sobriety, and what pulled you into this work?
So I've been a medical social worker for 30 years. So I've been doing this since I came out of the womb and in the 90s. So I've seen, my passion for healthcare has always been there. And finding a way to support people has always been where my passion has laid. So my story, my journey is the simplest way to say it is 11 shades of Meredith Grey, and if any of you are Grey's Anatomy, you know that every corner she turns, there's something more catastrophic than the last, and nobody believes that she can survive anything more, and everything still keeps happening. So, you know, um, I have my laundry list, as does everybody else, and mine spans from abuse by a parent and all the gloriousness that goes with that. I had a front row seat to 9/11. My youngest had a rare disease, a stem cell transplant, now has type 1 diabetes. My husband now has prostate cancer. And within all of that, with my son's rare disease, we started a foundation because his disease was so rare, and started the first and only cord blood donation program in the Philadelphia area, with Mainline Health and Temple. And so within that dumpster fire, us survivors and all of us, while we're utilizing these survival skills that were built since second one for many of us, those survival skills serve their purpose at that time. That's why they're called survival skills. And when we start to know that as our pattern, and we start to see the destructive nature of whatever we're doing to be able to breathe, to be able to function, go to work, raise our children, do whatever it is that we need to do. And for me, I drank. So through all of this, I drank 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in my sobriety, I realized that it was never about the booze, ever. It was this internal, because she's churning it a nonstop, which makes us have that visceral effect, that physical sense of wanting to vomit, that I talk about the anxiety diarrhea. It's real.
It's very real.
And when people say, "Oh, I have a stomach bug," no, you don't. You're freaking out. Like, and so when I realized that, and you take away that security blanket, that booze, and we say, "Oh, yeah, we'll get to that." But what unfolds is like blammo.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about the insanity of addiction, where you know that you are doing something that will kill yourself, and you're making horrible decisions, and you're doing all those things, but you don't know what else to do. And so within that, I got sober, and I worked, trauma therapy and all of the, and I've been in therapy since I was 5 years old, every antidepressant, all of that stuff. And they worked. They worked at the time that they were, maybe not the therapy as a child, as we all know what that was, but that's okay. Um, But, you know, I utilized the resources that were available to me along the way. And in doing that, I was still waking up wanting to kill 19 people, and half of them were already dead. And it's not a way to live. It's not a way to wake up and still be in that pure panic, because what we forget when we're studying or we're talking about post-traumatic stress, okay? Society would love us to just get over it. It's been 20 years. I don't understand why it still bothers you. Okay, that's fine. That's good, but it does. And in learning how to manage those symptoms, those intrusive thoughts are never going to go away. That's a pipe dream. And anybody who promised you that is lying through their teeth. But in order to manage them and to continuously lessen the intensity is the utmost goal. So I got sober and I'm still miserable. And I'm like, well, this sucks. I mean, if I'm going to sit here and be miserable every single freaking day of my life, then why did I do this? So I said to my husband, I said, if I had cancer, we would take me to any hospital that would treat me, and we would pump me full of poison, and we would do all of this stuff to get rid of the cancer. I said, this is the cancer of my brain. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is a festering dumpster pile, garbage, whatever, and I need to do this, or else I won't. A little skeptic, but constantly always in support of, dude, if this is going to help, we're on board. We're on board. Because while the intent was never to hurt anybody, all of my disasters were inevitably destroying, and systemically I was still, even though I wasn't doing the things that my family did to me, I was still instilling the same nonsense. Why does mommy pick booze over me? Why does all that? So, and the way I explain it is that you get to this brick wall, right? And you can see all of the wonderful things, everything you've been working your ass off for. Mm-hmm. And there's only a tiny little hole in the mortar. And you're like, I can see you, but I can't get to you. And that's how I explained it to my husband. I said, this wall is just so founded and immersed in my brain that it's just, the wavering is difficult. And I'm tired. I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of bathing in my own tub of filth. Like, I just can't do it anymore. And one of the biggest turning points was when I went to rehab number 2, because that's what all the cool kids do. And I sat down with my counselor and, met Betty Ford, because go big or go home. And, might as well go where Steven Tyler went. And I got to my counselors and I'm a mess. And I had daddy issues and the towers fell and my kid got sick and blah, 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 blah. And page 417 out of the big book is about acceptance. And he has it laminated. I carry it around with me every day. Acceptance, life on life's terms. If crap is going sideways, the only way to point is right here. And it wasn't minimizing what happened to me, but he looked at me and he goes, well, what the fuck are you going to do about it? And I sat there and I was like, well, I don't know. And that was the first time that I stopped pointing fingers. So now I'm sober. Now I'm clear on who's responsible for what, where, when, and why. The finger is always here. I was never in control of the things that happened to me or around me, but I have always been responsible for every action and behavior. Nothing excuses it. And when I got to that point that nothing will make me drink, not a person, not a place, not in everything. But to get to that point, I had to go over. So I'm a medical social worker. I'm with doctors nonstop. And I'm like the poster child at the hospital. I'm like, I'm doing ketamine. I'm doing ketamine. Everybody should be doing ketamine. So, and like, down in the emergency room, I'm like, I don't understand why everybody is not getting ketamine. So, but regardless of that fact, I say this and their eyes do exactly what we anticipate. Like, oh, and I said, okay, imagine this. What if your artery was blocked going to your heart? What would your cardiothoracic surgeon do? He's going to reroute your artery. Why do you believe that's not possible with the brain?
Mm-hmm.
And it stops them in their tracks because they're trained to fix all this. And I say to them, you can tinker around all you want till the cows come home. If she's still a hot mess, ain't nothing gonna work. But we live in this society that teaches us to be sick, encourages us to be a disaster. If you have a sniffle in your left nostril and you don't know what it is, go talk to your doctor, because it could be some rare disease, and then we'll give you a drug for that. And that's going to cause all these side effects, but don't worry, we've got a drug for that too. And it's just, as a hospice consultant, this is all I talk about is that acceptance. I say to them, do you know that those on hospice actually improve? And I'll say to them, do you know why? Why? I say, because they stopped fighting the fight that wasn't winnable. Stop. And that's what I was doing. I was never going to get a day in the ring. I was never going to be validated or acknowledged or any of those things. And I was never going to get people to understand. It's not my children's. I don't ever want them to understand. And I think where we were brought up with our kids, like, you need to understand what I went through. You must appreciate, and you must live your life the way that I felt back then. And that's not the case. And so that radical accountability and what ketamine does for me now, right now things are a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. They're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs out there, and they're cuckoo for Cocoa, even separately, they are. And so right now, I will own that, I feel my symptoms present a little more regularly than I do on my maintenance. And I'll tell you right now, the utilization of this therapy, the utilization of the clinicians, the utilization of the resources that are available to us has completely changed the trajectory of my life. And when I'm feeling that way, I don't have to I don't have to be miserable. That was the biggest revelation. Like, oh, I don't have to feel like crap every day. Oh, that's fantastic. Sign me up.
I,
And when I started, it was, as we can tell, I'm a little bit of a chatty catty, and I speak about what I feel passionate about. And when I started doing the therapy, it was right around the Matthew Perry. And everybody, well, that's what ketamine killed Matthew Perry. And I would say, I'm so sorry to burst your bubble, but Matthew Perry killed Matthew Perry. Like, it doesn't matter the method. But we as a society latch on to that. So, medical marijuana. Oh my God, I wrote a congressional testimony for the legalization of medical marijuana in the 90s. Like, this is not new news, people, but we were trained. And that goes to show you the brain is retrainable. She is the most fascinating muscle. And this is what I say to physicians, your brain is the most complex organ, the least understood and the least respected. And it controls everything. Period. End of story. Don't know what to tell you. Talk amongst yourselves.
our brains are very powerful.
Absolutely. And that concept of you can control your thoughts. You can learn tools and utilize tools to manage your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can do things to control them by not immersing us in negative situations that are going to spark those negative thoughts. And I'll tell you right now, I don't watch the news. I will be blatantly honest that I have no clue what is going on. None. None.
Could you
I,
imagine, like, we literally were glued to our TVs? Like, you know, especially like at a turning point, so to say. Um, we had just moved from New Jersey to Virginia in 2001, and a lot of our friends were firefighters, you know, running to the World Trade Center. And we were just so glued to our TVs back then. And, you know, it's just like, I guess now COVID has really turned that. And I don't even think anybody's watching TVs anymore.
oh no. Well, I meant like I'm not watching the news.
Right.
I'm not bringing those things. There's too much going on.
I agree.
Dude, I ain't got no control over nothing, nothing, nothing. So I sit in my nice home. We look at the trees, and if the apocalypse comes, I typically tell my children to run to it. I'm like, do not even attempt to survive. Just run right into it.
Love
You
it.
know, poltergeist. Go to the light, Carol Ann.
I
Go
love
to the light.
it.
But
Oh,
again, it's fighting the fight that isn't winnable.
yeah.
It's not winnable. And none of this is new. And I think those of us in the Gen X, where we're really realizing that that storybook that was read to us, and that's where you're seeing this whole turnaround, is these eyes are opened. And it was like, wait a minute, no, I didn't have to do it all. I don't know who the hell told me that and why and what the heck it all was. And I was killing myself doing it.
Mhm.
Now questioning all of my life choices and all those things. And it's very it can become very overwhelming, and it boils down to that level setting of expectations. Well, we expected that we were going to be able to do it all, and so we were disappointed every day of our lives
Yeah.
because it wasn't attainable.
Yeah, and I feel like what with that said, what what do you feel about counseling? Like, are you still in counseling today? Or so what does counseling look like? How has it evolved in your opinion over the years from when you first started counseling? Because I know I'm in counseling now, and I think, like, for me and as a millennial, like, the stigma is like you don't go to counseling. And for me, it's like, no, we need to go to counseling. We need counseling, and it can really help us see things on a different aspect. So, from your generation, how has it evolved over the years from then until now?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, especially like child counseling and all that stuff, you played sorry. You sat there in silence, you played sorry because you didn't know why you were there. You didn't know what the hell was going on, and you were sure it was something to do with you. And I just want to play my game. Like, useless, useless. Um, you know, I think so. Taboo, yes. 90s 2000s became the really hip thing. I mean, we're going to see this, and this just keeps going and keeps going. You know, obviously 50s 60s 70s, no, you did not talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
80s, everybody was blowing so much coke and didn't know what the hell that was going on that nobody actually sought counseling because you just
Yep.
90s we started to dry out. And now, and especially with COVID, mental health is being spoken about, but again, not honestly. So in my coaching, and this is exactly how I speak. I am not here to sugarcoat it. If I am not being honest with you, then I'm not doing my job. In the hospital, I'm not doing my job as a social worker. In coaching, I'm not doing my job as a coach. In hospice, I'm not doing my job if I'm not honestly telling you that yes, you are in fact dying.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all realities that we choose to see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. And that's no different. So my recommendation, and even in sobriety, is everything's a piecemeal. There is no cookie cutter, but you have to advocate for yourself. For me, AA, wonderful, but it has its place and it's not the be all and end all.
Mm-hmm.
Things I agree with, things I don't. So I take the good. And then I go over here and, okay, trauma therapy. That intensive served its purpose. I don't need to revisit La La Land every day. That's no. 6 months, a year of intensive trauma therapy. Really? Did we really work on it? Or are we and most of the time, it's that verbal vomit. The reason I'm so crazy is because my brain goes as fast as my thoughts are going, and they're not good thoughts. And until I get them out and hear how legitimately insane they sound, but if I don't have anybody to tell them to, they're just swirling in here.
Yeah. And, to kind of piggyback off of that, from my aspect, I endured tons of trauma in my childhood. And it was just by the grace of God that social media evolved, and it kind of became like a journal for me. And of course, I had people who are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're posting that on social media, or oh my gosh, why would you post that? And I've had all those comments, but to me, it was kind of like a healing thing for me. And not so much that it never replaced counseling, because I've been in counseling as well, years of counseling. But it was just like a healing for me, that it never it just kind of satisfied, when I wasn't in counseling, I was able to, just put everything out there. But then it was a ripple effect. So everything that I put out, I had 5 to 10 people reach out, and they were like, Jess, oh my God, I had no idea that you adored that. Or Jess, who's your counselor? I really need to see, my marriage is suffering. Jess, I didn't even know that you and Chris had issues. Your life seemed so perfect. And so and then it grew from 5 to 10, and then 10 to 15. And now I have over hundreds of people who reach out to me on a yearly basis. And they're like, where do I start? What do I do?
And I think to that point is why I did the book. Sorry, there's a piece of hair stuck to my hand. I wasn't really, I'm like, woo. So writing the book, yes, everybody who hears a story that is so off the rocker, when I first did my timeline, I'm like, I don't even know how I'm still standing here. And I'm just going to say that out loud. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so people would repeat, you should write a book. You should write a book. So then I got this cuckoo brain idea that I was going to become this massive entrepreneur, and I was going to write this book, and I was going to change the world. And everybody was going to want to, instantly. And the book itself was the most cathartic thing I've ever done. And I bought into one of the programs, ridiculous, worth every penny. I wrote my book in 8 weeks because they weren't new thoughts. I had these chapters, we've all, those of us who have been through it and who have journaled and who have done things, and, we've been thinking about this somewhere. And the content, I didn't have to make up the content. So I just needed someone to guide me. And so that then put it out there. And I have been very honest when I got sober. I mean, I will say the things out loud. I drove around with my kids drunk in the car. I drank 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all around the hospital. While you all thought I was working, I was going bathroom to bathroom, finding my little stash, whatever. And people would be like, oh my God, I cannot believe you're so honest. I'm like, I don't want to look behind my shoulder anymore. I did these things, and I'm owning them, and I'm not excusing them, and nothing makes them go away. And that was the communication I had with my children, that the clarity that comes with ketamine has allowed me to be able to share parts of my story that give them perspective as to why I am the way I am, but doesn't immerse them in that emotional journey. That's not their place. They don't belong there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So you, in your own words, what does it mean to move from managing the mess to healing the root?
So everything I do is about going to the core. Every single thing I do professionally, emotionally and it's what I call my superpower, is I can, and from the experiences. We all went to school, we all got our degrees, blah, 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 but experiences on top of that really cultivate your vision. And that ability to pivot and reframe and all of that goes to the root, and it had to do with really peeling myself back when it was personal and going to who am I at the very core and understanding that that never changed.
Mm-hmm.
The human being, and I know that from the people who stood by my side, from the support that I received. I knew that there was a lot of good in there. That good was trying so hard to creep out. And we as women particularly were told, so this spidey sense, that squirrely feeling, that's your gut reaction, and that's an actual biophysical reaction that is real. And we as women were taught, nope, shh, don't be overreactive. Don't be, you're too sensitive. You're too this, you're too that. You should be over it, blah, 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 blah. And she was always right. Always. You thought a situation was squirrely and you were like, oh, I'm overreacting. Mm-mm, mm-mm. You listen to her. And it's okay to be sometimes, hyper aware of your surroundings and whatever we have to. That's just protective. So to that core, I'm sorry, I got a little
You're good.
derailed. And it's so funny because when I talk to people, when I'm trying, because the thoughts are constantly like this, I will pause and I'm like, I swear to God, I'm not having a stroke. I just have to stop them for a second.
I love it. No, just continue to be you.
Everything is the core. Everything is the core. And when you start to have this clarity, and a lot of the things, I promise this will tie around, a lot of the things that come out when I do my ketamine sessions, like I am very intentful when I go in. Like if I'm wonky and I know, otherwise why am I, yes, it's a very nice meditation, but I need to get you out. And really being able to feel that release and getting to the core to be able to connect those dots that say, oh, I get why I was so crazy. I get why I was the dirty mistress. I get why I was the raging alcoholic. Doesn't excuse it. Again, no free passes. But it gives me clarity to say, you're not horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, my book and everything out there says, one, I'm not unique. And it allows someone to be this raw and vulnerable for someone to be like, oh my God, I can at least say this little thing. She's out there bare-assed. I can show a little boob. And that's really my only goal, is for someone to say, I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not. Mm-mm.
I love it. And I do love the title of your book. It's The Dumpster Fire Diaries. Get Off the Hot Mess Express. I absolutely love that title. And what I want to do is I'm going to set up a link in my bio. And so if you don't mind sending me over a link to
The Amazon link. Yep, absolutely.
Yep, and I'll be more than happy to link that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So if you had to sum up the message of the book in one sentence, what would it be?
You're not alone.
I love it.
You know, it is, and it's why I love the dumpster fire. A lot of Gen Xers relate to it. But as I explain it, regardless of age, I have 90-year-olds. I'm like, oh, it's a freaking fucking rolling dumpster fire. And they start dying laughing because they know exactly what it is. And she's always with us, we think. And oh, when we, tying back into the mental health pieces, level setting the expectations. Your mental health professional cannot fix you. Your medical physician cannot fix you. So stop blaming other people. And so the mental health and where I find it so beneficial is being that sounding board,
Mm-hmm.
being that someone that I know you have no stake in the game. You're going to call me out on my shit. You're going to hold me accountable, but you're not responsible for my behaviors and actions. I want to act like a buffoon. Well, you're going to sit there and be like, told you.
I love it.
And that's, I think, what we need. I think they're lost with millennials and even the generation before you, where it got so coddling.
Yeah.
And there was no ability to process that. One, yes, things are upset and they're hard, but they're not. Let me think. No one is responsible for my triggers, if that makes sense. Now, if you're an ass and you're just going after me, that's one thing. But no, Bob at the cocktail party who says something and all of a sudden, no, Bob doesn't know. Bob's not responsible for that. So I got to be damn sure I know how to. Otherwise, we're the Tasmanian devil run all over God's green earth, taking everything out in sight.
I agree. I 100% agree. I feel like, with Gen Xers, to me, I feel like between the Gen Xers and the millennials, there's like a division because there's so many Gen Xers that want to be free from that, but there's also the millennials who are learning to step up and be vocal about, the 90s, the 80s and 90s were tough to live in.
They were terrible.
They were, my parents, like, my mom was at work. Like, I was the oldest. I was stuck at home to pretty much raise my brother and sister. I had to cook dinner. Like, now I could never fathom my children cooking dinner for my children. Just all of these things, like, but it was the time that they lived in. And
to your point, one of my biggest things that has come out of all of this is my ability to, it's not so much forgive my mother, but accept where she was with everything, that she was a battered wife times two. And so this was a step up. He was a Jew, cantor and the Orthodox Jew, and he wasn't beating her, wasn't hitting her, but the psychological bullshit. And she did the best that she could at the time with the resources that she had. My resentment for her went away. Maybe that's a better way. It's not so much full out forgiveness.
Yeah.
I struggle with that a little bit, but I don't resent her anymore. I don't hold her responsible for his actions.
Mm-hmm. Recently, it's a year ago last week, my brother committed suicide. And, that was very hard. And I kind of evaluated a lot, like, his life upbringing. And to kind of go back to what you were saying, like, my first initial instinct, and yes, I did do a lot of counseling with this, like when my brother took his life. But my first initial instinct was to blame my mom. Like, she raised us. But it wasn't until I healed in counseling with my brother's loss that I understood that my mom was living in a time where she didn't have a lot of resources, and she was literally doing the best she can. And so the only thing that I knew how to do was to forgive her and
Yep.
not hold her accountable, because number one, if I forgive her, then that allows me to be at peace. And then if I also forgive her, then that allows my kids to see that, those are practices that they can bring on to their futures and their kids and, and their grandkids. And so if I'm sitting here like, oh, I hate my mom, like,
Right, right,
yeah,
right. And again, doesn't that looks very different. It doesn't always mean reconciliation. It doesn't always mean, but what the word that I use all the time, and the greatest gift that I believe that everything that we have gone through has given my children, is resilience. And I don't care about the accolades, the medals, nothing, nothing. If you know how to tuck and roll, then I did my job well.
yeah, yeah. And I love that word. I think a couple of years ago, that was one of my words for the year, is just
Yeah. You know how you pick
acknowledging.
those out? You pick them and you're like, yep, I'm using that every day.
Yeah, like, you're having to acknowledge that they they only raised us in an environment they knew. And for me, if I was breaking generational trauma, well, my mom was abused. She was mentally, physically, and emotionally abused, and she was just raising us kids in a way that she only knew how.
Trying to survive.
Trying to survive. And so, that survival mode did trickle down to me. And even though it was damaging, like, I knew that something had to change. And I was like, hey, I've got to be the generational breaker. Like, I've got to do something about this. And I did. And right before, right as soon as we got married, I was like, look, we've got to get into counseling, because I can't have this marriage and be a repeat of what I was raised on. Or we can't bring in kids into this world if we're not healed from what's hurting us. And
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. Correct. And that's even to the point of being in a relationship, to be married to someone. A lot of women that I work with who are, newly divorced, and immediately I need that next validation point. And I love it when I see women be empowered to solely focus on themselves. Even with my son at 19, you're in college. He's been dating his girlfriend for a year, and okay, whatever, whatever. And I say to both of them, do not make choices based on your relationship right now. Do not make your school choices. Do not make your plan choices. Because even if you're meant to be, you separate, you go, you do your separate things. That's our universe. That's the way she works. If it's meant to be, it'll be. But you cannot be together if you are not whole separately.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hugely where our generation, that Gen X, that's where we got pissed.
Yep.
Because we never became that whole person. You go to school, you get married, maybe you go to college in between. My generation, yeah, much more than that, but you still got married, had your kids, had a job, and then it turned into maybe two. The whole thing, just focusing on ourselves is the key.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
I agree. 100%. We cannot fix the situations around us until we fix ourselves.
Yeah. And it's the hardest and it's the ugliest. But if I can't face her, I'm just dragging her around with me.
Yeah.
It's gonna seep into everything I touch.
Yeah. Exactly. Which goes into my next question. So, how do you see, along with Mindbloom, the therapy fitting into the bigger picture of mental health and addiction recovery?
Um So I think as we're embracing things that are almost of these truth sayers, do you know what I mean? Giving that safe space in our brain to do that honest therapy that is the only thing that's going to make any difference. Um, I'm a hospice consultant. Think about saying that word hospice and what it does to people. It's fascinating, and it's all about that misconception. So, the concept of therapy is not this elongated, drag it out, rehash it, blame everybody. Because back in the 70s, it was, you blamed your parents for everything. 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was all our parents' fault. And um, so the ketamine allowing these thoughts to come through and then having that clinical resource to guide you through understanding them, I
Mm-hmm.
think is really the key. I love the word guide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I absolutely, yeah, I love that. What, so you have been through chaos and healing, and what gives you hope for people who are still in the thick of it?
the knowledge that it's possible. When people meet me and then hear the story, see pictures, see things like the hospital that I work at now, no one ever knew me drunk. Never knew me drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So their version of me is, and it just is amazing to see that and to understand what an absolute rolling dumpster fire this was, that it is in fact possible to do it. And it is hard ass work. This is not easy. But think about how hard it is to stay miserable.
Mm-hmm. I love how you say that, because I literally just told my daughter, our middle child is going through a lot of things right now. And I just told her, I said, it's really hard to go through these things, but it's even harder if you don't get the help that you need. And to continue these patterns and to continue to, not heal from, things that you're dealing with. And so, yeah, I love that you said that.
Yeah.
So you often talk about, if you could leave our listeners with one truth about healing and growth, what would it be?
It's the best thing ever. I wouldn't trade it. Done right, it's the best thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
And every single little chip away gets you that much closer.
I love that. You're exactly right, 150%. And then what is next for Sarah Shaffer? Any projects, advocacy work, coaching programs we should keep our eyes on?
Well, so right now, what I've done is, where I love the hospice space is it's allowed me to marry everything together.
Mm-hmm.
And it can span across the multitude of generations. The 101-year-old who is well accepting that they're passing, the 52-year-old who has chronic, terrible disease, and everybody in between, and really honing in on that acceptance as key is gives me the ability to impact not only the patients, the families, the physicians. The physicians, honey, you got to accept that you can't do this. We got to get on that train because she'd gone done derailed. But, and so, but like projects, so I'm doing some local book readings and things. Absolutely. I would love to do a hospice book, but we'll got to see where that's going to go. But this is affording me the platform, the hospice work, to speak about what I love passionately and get paid for it.
Yeah.
Okay. It may not look the avenue that I originally thought entrepreneurial, but you know what? I don't care where the money comes from. I really don't. And I think that's where we get stuck, right? Oh, it's not exactly how I thought it was going to look. And every single step of the way, I took a step back. If things started going not the way I liked them, it was because I was pushing too hard and not in a positive way. My intent behind my actions was not kosher, if you will. So that daily accountability list, it keeps you there. And if you just keep embracing the keys, I think, that are being handed, then it's all there for us.
Love it. And that brings us to the end of our podcast. Sarah, it was such a great time connecting with you and
You as well.
hearing your journey and your story. I love it. And I'll leave all of the information in our bio and our links so people have access to you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jess. It was awesome. Be well.